Welcome to Bad Gear, the show about the world's most hated audio tools. Over the last few weeks it seemed like this channel was turning into the synth freak version of a Toys R Us. So I was looking forward to an episode about a straightforward piece of grown-up pro gear from the Reagan era, the Roland U-110. Given its minimalist appearance and, spoiler alert, underwhelming feature set, one might forget the importance it had for the history of Roland instruments. The 1988 U-110 and its unreleased older brother, the primordial T-110, are the forefathers of a number of highly esteemed Roland product lines like the JVs, XPs and XVs, and paved the way for the rompler revolution of the early 90s. The other two U's, the slightly improved U-220 and its keyboard version, the U-20, were among the first instruments that allowed electronic musicians and keyboarders to play realistic acoustic sounds on stage. The U-110 should not be confused with the similarly looking D-110, which featured Roland's trademark LA synthesis. While the Ds only used very short sample fragments and combined them with subtractive synthesis to fill the mold, the U-110's sounds consist entirely of samples, for better or worse. At the first glance, the Roland U-110 is ticking all the boring 80s rack gear boxes. 6 buttons, a headphone output and one of the displays that made people hate displays. There's a MIDI trio and, hooray, 6 assignable outputs. You could extend the limited internal sound library by adding up to 4 ROM cards at the same time. A total of 15 of these little revenue pushers were available, and I am a bit disappointed that I couldn't get hold of the SN-U-110 08 synthesizer card. 80s Roland menu diving and manuals have a long history of driving people insane. This is not much of an issue with the U-110, not because the UI is good, but simply because it can't do much. 99 presets organized in the tried and tested MC Escher style menu structure, among them many brass instruments, organs, not so convincing acoustic pianos, one drum kit, and 12, yes, 12 slap basses. Welcome to the 80s. There's a 2-stage envelope and LFO for amplitude, a tremolo effect, a very noisy chorus and no filter. I never fully understood the internal mixer and routing, but making educated guesses while semi-randomly pushing buttons got the job done nicely. Speaking of getting the job done nicely, if you want to see an excellent example of U-110 use in the way it was intended by the manufacturer, I can recommend Synthmania's great video about it. Because we all know this episode is not gonna be a masterclass in keyboard playing. There is an abundance of U-110s available on the used market for reasonable prices, but you might want to spend some extra cash on the ROM cards as the internal presets can get boring really quickly. I literally bought mine out of the trunk of a car for €80 and I could swear that the seller included a ROM card which I can't find at the moment. The Roland U-110 seems like a classic music production workhorse. Why are there so many people who hate it, like it single-handedly killed diversity in pop music? You have already heard the U-110 in our little intro tune. Yeah, that's a brass sample. I wanna know how much proto groove we can get out of this proto rompler in this proto dubstep jam. Who said that samples of acoustic instruments always have to sound like the real deal? Crunchy lo-fi drums, the choir sample has a nice mellotron feel to it, and I would love to hear the crisp saxophone in a 90s style hip-hop track. The U-110 was designed for use with mixing consoles. Let's butcher some of the presets with a mostly analog setup. Cool! The sounds take FX well and remain tight even after applying too much of everything. I especially liked the heavily affected bell sound and distorted upright bass. The noisy, grainy, aliasing and pitch artifact-ridden samples of the U-110 remind me of that oddly relaxing synthwave subgenre that sounds like a pitched-down version of the entire Rick Astley discography. In the name of science, we should try to find out how much abuse the U-110's presets can really take in this small soft vapor statics hauntology Muzak wave hit record. Verdict. I like instruments like the Roland U-110. They are like time capsules that preserve the feeling and zeitgeist of a certain era, just like ancient stone carvings. Sure, they can't compete with modern sound modules and software when it comes to usability and sound quality, but all the obvious flaws like converter crunch, pitch artifacts and aliasing are more of a feature than a bug in a world of pristine electronic musical instruments. Moreover, we shouldn't forget that most of these Roland rack units of yesteryear were built for professionals and still work great in a professional environment. Do you need old and seemingly obsolete units like the U-110? No. But I would say it's okay to be a nostalgic fool and get it anyway, especially when you have some rack space to spare and a bunch of output gear to turn that 80s cheese into a casserole of lasagna everybody will enjoy. Thanks for watching and see you next time! Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the episode. Feel free to like and subscribe and don't forget to leave a comment what other kind of gear you would like to see and hear on the show.